All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're pulling out the key points from a seriously urgent and honestly fascinating brief article by Dr. Reg Butterfield. We're going to confront a reality that, frankly, we just can't afford to ignore anymore. And that's the idea that artificial intelligence, it's not just your standard tech upgrade. We aren't just talking about getting faster laptops or slightly better search engines. We are standing at a literal crossroads for the future of humanity.
Dr. Butterfield hits the nail on the head right away. He says, and I quote, "We are standing at the edge of a new world for humankind." This observation perfectly sets the stage for everything we're exploring today. He argues that this specific moment in time is, simultaneously, a massive threat and an entirely unprecedented opportunity. The core warning here is simple, but it's pretty chilling. Society has to decide what it wants from this new world right now, before the decision is permanently made for us. To really grasp the staggering speed at which this new world is hitting us, I want you to consider the number 32. Get this. Recently, an AI model was given an 80-year-old unsolved problem in pure mathematics. It didn't take years of intense academic debate or endless peer review. It took roughly 32 hours of computing time and cost maybe $1,000 in processing fees. And the craziest part? There were absolutely zero humans standing at a blackboard. Just the machine, grinding through variations until boom, the answer emerged. Leading mathematicians are calling this an absolute milestone.
Okay, so this brings us to our first main theme, the historical pattern of power. You see, when we look back, there's this constant predictable tug of war between innovation and power. History definitely has a rhythm to it. Back in the 15th century, the printing press promised to share knowledge with absolutely everyone, but what happened? It was quickly co-opted to fund state propaganda. Fast forward to the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution promised mass wealth, like an end to scarcity, yet it largely delivered concentrated wealth for a few folks in boardrooms. And then the 20th century. The digital age promised us ultimate connection and pure democracy. But, well, we ended up building surveillance economies and giant platform monopolies. Every single time there's a major tech shift, the promise is always prosperity for all. Yet time and time again, the existing power structures swoop in to decide who actually reaps the benefits.
And that brings us to our current reality. We're watching this exact historical pattern repeat itself, but this time, it's happening at warp speed. The gap between what humans can do and what machines can do in certain fields is closing way, way faster than our slow-moving institutions can adjust. It's forcing us to confront a really uncomfortable question we've basically been avoiding. Who gets to decide how this immense new power is used?
Which leads us to our second big section, 2 possible AI futures.
In his novel Echo Protocol, Dr. Butterfield explored these 2 exact, diverging paths, and they frame our current dilemma perfectly. On one side, AI could be a shared tool. In this version of the future, it distributes capability. It gets rid of our daily drudgery, massively expands access to things like education and healthcare, and optimizes our whole society for resilience. It frees us up to focus on creativity and community. But on the flip side, AI can just as easily become an instrument of control. In that future, all this power gets concentrated in the hands of a few billionaires or state actors, who then use it to monitor populations and neatly sort society into blind, hyper-efficient silos. The truly terrifying part? Both of these scenarios are technically possible right this very second.
So here is the absolute crucial point you need to take away. The technology itself does not care. AI has no inherent morality, it has no empathy, no conscience. It just strictly follows whatever rules we feed it. And right now, those rules are mostly being written by system engineers, venture capitalists, and a handful of policymakers. Look, they're brilliant at building highly efficient systems, sure, but they are not necessarily trained or even incentivized to protect human dignity, fairness, or long-term social stability.
All right, let's look at Section 3, 5 crucial choices we have to make.
Because honestly, we cannot just sit around waiting for perfect global treaties to save us. Butterfield outlines 5 practical, immediate choices society has to face to start building better decision-making habits. First up, who owns the output? When an AI generates entirely new knowledge or writes code or creates a beautiful piece of art, we have to define who actually holds the rights. Does the profit go to the massive tech company that trained the model? Does it belong to the user who casually typed in the prompt? Or what about the public, whose data was scraped to teach the machine in the first place? Ownership determines incentive, and incentive entirely dictates behavior.
Question number 2, who verifies the truth? AI is notoriously incredibly good at producing very convincing answers that are completely dangerously wrong. In high-stakes fields, think medicine, law, or running a city, a plausible-sounding error is actually so much more dangerous than an obvious mistake.
We absolutely have to establish independent verification layers that are completely outside the control of the organizations building these models.
Third choice, who bears the cost of displacement? If AI successfully automates away routine work, what happens to the millions of people whose lives depended on those jobs? Just tossing around the buzzword retraining is not an actual plan. We need real, concrete mechanisms for income stability, smooth skill transitions, and solid community support, so that entire regions aren't just left behind to absorb the damage on their own.
Fourth on the list, who controls the gates? Advanced computing power, massive data sets, specialized talent, these things are astronomically expensive. Access is already getting highly concentrated. If only a tiny handful of massive entities can even afford to run these frontier models, well, they're going to set all the standards. We have to figure out how to stop a technical oligopoly from seamlessly morphing into a political oligopoly that dictates what is safe or useful for the rest of us.
And finally, our fifth question, who keeps the human in the loop? And I don't just mean having a human as a figurehead or some meaningless compliance checkbox you tick at the end of a form. We have to ask, who ensures humans remain a genuine checkpoint where actual judgment, human ethics, and real-world context can override pure machine efficiency? Some decisions simply shouldn't ever be fully automated. We need to actively name those decisions, protect them, and frankly, fund the people making them.
Ultimately, these are governance problems. They're not technical bugs waiting for a patch. To actually solve them, we need to treat AI like public infrastructure that requires responsible stewarding. That means setting up open forums to stress test policies before they're permanently locked in. It means legally requiring independent audits for any AI used in public services, like, say, hiring or law enforcement. We've got to heavily fund public interest research that is completely untethered from corporate profit roadmaps. And we have to build education systems that teach deep systems awareness and critical thinking, rather than just training people how to click buttons on the newest AI tool.
This brings us to our final section, choosing design over drift.
That window of opportunity we have to make these changes, it's incredibly narrow. History shows us loud and clear that our institutions rarely keep pace with technology unless intense public pressure is applied early and applied consistently. The choice sitting right in front of us isn't just a simple binary between, blind progress and fearful caution. The real choice is between design and drift. Are we going to intentionally design systems built from the ground up to serve people? Or are we just going to passively drift into a future where systems treat us as mere variables, just data points to be calculated, sorted, and optimized for the benefit of a few people at the top?
Look, we don't need a crystal ball here. We don't have to perfectly predict the exact technological future down to the microchip, but we absolutely must decide what kind of future we are actually willing to tolerate. And we have to do it now, while the tech is still young and malleable enough to shape, before these highly efficient habits of control set like concrete and permanently lock in.
The tools are already out of the box. They are operating around us right now, and the power they yield is incredibly, undeniably real, which leaves us with one final, unavoidable question that we all need to deeply ponder as we step over the edge into this new world. Who gets to hold this immense power, and what exactly are we going to do with it? Seriously, think about that the next time you look at the systems being built around you today.